2023 is likely to be the year of opportunities when it comes to buying a house. While it's not likely to come in the form of a housing crash or some major foreclosure wave, that doesn't mean there aren't going to be opportunities in the market. And in today's video, we're going to spend a little bit of time and talk about those opportunities, where you're likely to be able to get a home for much less than the asking price, where sellers are more likely to negotiate with you when it comes to buying a house. And on top of that, we're going to talk about the top 10 markets for the United States in 2023, where you're likely to see the most growth on top of the most stability in the market. Which housing markets are likely to remain the most stable in a changing housing market? The National Association of Realtors just came out and are expecting 4.78 million homes to be sold in 2023. That's down nearly 7% from the 5.13 million that sold in 2022, and nearly 35 to 40% less than what we saw in 2021. So there's going to be less real estate activity actually happening in 2023, primarily due to housing affordability, because interest rates are currently still sitting around 6%, and home prices, while they have declined, we haven't seen any major decreases in most U.S. markets at the moment. On top of that, the National Association of Realtors is expecting home prices to continue to increase in 2023 by 0.3%. That's following a 9.6% increase in 2022. Now, before we dive into the first opportunity in today's video, I want to take a minute and ask a favor. If you'll hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, it helps the YouTube algorithm, helps more people see it, and ultimately helps me accomplish my goal of helping more people become home buyers in 2023. The first opportunity I want to talk about today is in new construction. At the moment, home builders are sitting on about 5.5 months of unsold inventory that's currently under construction. And as those homes are completed, it's going to create a lot of opportunities for home buyers in 2023. The latest data show that home sales tumbled by 7% in November. That's the 10th straight month of declines, at a time when home builder sentiment has declined for the 12th straight month in a row. And as many of you know, this all has to do with housing affordability, just less people out there being able to afford these properties, on top of home builders building homes trying to keep up with the demand of a growing population. This next graph shows months of supply by stage of construction. There are 1.2 months of completed supply. This is getting close to a normal level. The inventory of new homes under construction is at 5.5 months. That's the blue line. This elevated level of homes under construction is due to supply chain constraints. On top of that, you have about 2 months of potential inventory that has not been started yet, about to double the normal level. Many home builders out there are waiting to start some of these homes once they get a firmer grasp on the economy, on home prices, and ultimately where the market is headed. But with that said, home builders are not in the business of holding on to inventory. So they're likely to will and deal more than a seller who's currently living in a property with a super low interest rate that doesn't really have the motivation to move. Many sellers out there at the moment have their homes on the market just testing the market to see if they can get their price. You know, they saw their neighbor's house sell down the street 6 months ago when the market was red hot, and now they've sat there and contemplated it over the last couple of months, thinking that their home is nicer, their home is in a better location, and that ultimately they can get more money for their home. So they have their home on the market testing the market. And because the market has stalled because of higher interest rates, because of housing affordability, because of seasonality, because it's a slower time in the year out there, these homes are sitting on the market. And many of these sellers don't have to sell because they have a place to live and they've locked in a super low interest rate. And many of these homeowners are sitting on a ton of equity. So they're not in a position of duress where they're having to make irrational decisions to sell these properties. But on the other hand, there's a lot of doom and gloom out there at the moment surrounding builders because of that inventory that we spoke about earlier, especially in markets where we saw home prices appreciate the most over the last couple of years. Markets like Austin, Texas, Boise, Idaho, Phoenix, Arizona, because these are not only markets that appreciated a lot, they're also markets where they saw a lot of home buyer activity. And at the same time, these are the markets that stalled the most. So as these builders finish these properties, that's going to be opportunities for many home buyers out there. So if you're a home buyer out there considering new construction, just understand the opportunities might come in the form of a lower price. You might be able to negotiate the price lower on that property. You might also be able to negotiate some closing costs cost, where the builder will pay you some money or give you some money towards paying your closing costs. It may also come in the form of builder upgrades. They might give you a credit at the design center to go and make new improvements to your property. They may also work with you in the form of a seller credit. This is similar to paying for your closing costs, but in this case, you might be buying down the interest rate, with a temporary buy down or some permanent buy down to get a lower rate, ultimately giving you a lower monthly payment. Now, while I say there's opportunities out there in new construction, just also know there's going to be some areas where the builders aren't going to want to work with you. They're not going to be willing to work with you because in some areas out there, builders aren't necessarily sitting on a ton of completed inventory. But if you're in a market that has a lot of new construction, has a lot of completed projects, where home builders have a lot of available properties in one community, well, those are the communities where they're more likely to will and deal and want to work with you in order to get those homes sold. Now, as a first-time home buyer out there looking for opportunities in 2023 and not sure where to start, wondering about the process, I've created a first-time home buyer course to guide you through that process. It's called Becoming HomeWise. It's over 50 modules of content to take you from A to Z to not only guide you, but also help you become an expert home buyer in the process. So if you're interested in that, do me a favor and check the link below. The next opportunity I see for buying a house in 2023 is on those houses out there that are ugly. Maybe they're in inferior locations and they just don't have the cosmetic upgrades that many buyers out there want to see. In my experience in showing buyers a lot of properties over my career, what I've seen most recently is buyers watching HGTV, watching all of these different flip shows and wanting a home like the finished product that many of these shows offer. When in all reality, you're typically paying a premium to buy these properties. And because many homeowners out there don't have the excess funds to be able to do these improvements once they buy a property, they want to buy it already completed so that they can move in, it's nicely done, and they don't have to worry about hiring contractors or dealing with upgrades. But at the same time, what I can tell you, at least in my market, is these homes are still really competitive. Many of these homes are still selling at the asking price, in some cases above the asking price, with multiple offers when they're priced correctly, because there's still a large percentage of buyers out there that want these types of homes. So the opportunity lies in homes that aren't that, right? The homes that don't have the grays and whites, that don't have the quartz countertops or the laminate flooring, the homes that aren't nicely staged, the homes that have been sitting on the market a little bit longer, where you've seen sellers reduce the asking price over and over again. These are where the opportunity lies in this market because there's less competition on those homes. And if you ultimately want to buy a house and get a deal, want an opportunity, then you've got to focus on the homes that no one else wants. Now, with that said, I don't believe you should go out and buy a house in a location that you don't like. Location is number one. You should always focus on location over everything else because you can't pick a house up and move it. In most areas, where I'm from in North Carolina, you probably can do that. But here in California, you can't pick a house up and move it. So location is number one. But with that said, you want to buy the worst house in the best neighborhood. I know you've probably heard it from your parents, but at the moment, what people are focusing on is the best house in the best neighborhood. And where the opportunity lies is in the home that you can make the improvements. You can buy the home for potentially less than market value, do the upgrades, do the improvements that the others in the neighborhood have done. Maybe not immediately, but over time, by saving money, by putting money away and doing these things a little bit at a time. And that creates value in that home. And because you are likely able to get an opportunity, now you've added value to that property, you're going to be sitting in a much better position long term. But at the end of the day, the best way to get an opportunity or get a deal is by finding motivated sellers, finding sellers that have a reason that they have to sell or that they want to sell, somebody that needs to act because maybe they're closing on another property, maybe they're under duress and need to sell for some particular reason. But when you have a motivated seller, you typically have an opportunity to get that home for less than market value. Another opportunity in the 2023 housing market is to buy homes in areas where you're going to see growth due to a good economy, due to people wanting to move there. And the National Association of Realtors just put out their top 10 list for 2023 based on how they compare to the national average. Some of the economic indicators they focused on were better housing affordability. Also, they focused on an area that had a large large number of renters that could afford the median price home, on top of economies that had stronger job growth, good migration patterns, people wanting to move to these areas, in addition to faster population growth, on top of markets that are going to have inventory, right? They're not going to have housing shortages out there. And the number one market that they're picking for 2023 is Atlanta, on top of Raleigh coming in at a strong second, Dallas in third, Fayetteville, Springville, Rogers, Arkansas, Missouri area. Then you've got South Carolina, looking at the Greenville, and then the Charleston area. And then you've got Huntsville, Alabama, Jacksonville, Florida, San Antonio, Texas area, with Knoxville, Tennessee coming in at number 10. Now understand, just because these markets made the list doesn't mean you're going to be able to go out and buy a property and within a year have some huge amount of appreciation on that property. You still want to buy a property for the right reasons, when it's the right time in your life. You don't want to go around trying to pick tops or bottoms in markets, or buy in one of these markets just because the National Association of Realtors reported it as one of their top 10 metros. But with that said, I do believe that 2023 is going to be a really good year to buy real estate. I believe there's an opportunity out there for new home buyers, as long as you're buying for the right reason and focusing on the right things when buying that property. So if you are a new home buyer and you're wondering what you should focus on when buying a home in 2023, do me a favor and check this video out here.